comes the money.
Here we go.
Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling, cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then you're talking no matter. Ching, ching, bling, bling, patent pockets. We take the dollar, dollar, can a damn soul stop it? Here comes the new kid on the block. Hold on, you
Bet you didn't expect that intro.
See, first of all, I'm stepping out on my own. About time I elevated to claim my own.
I will take the copyright strike.
Call it homegrown. Testosterone. Power and money got me crazy cocky. No longer need you, poppy. I know you're mad because you can't stop me. And if you wonder how this player done scooped your honey, I think she smell my cologne. It's called brand new money. Making major moves, man, ain't a damn thing funny. Pimpin' hood rats, the Playboy bunnies. They see the. They see it. They see it.
Every shot.
Money. I'm global dollar dollar and roll with Bow 50. Like to go out smelling fresh and looking spiffy. Don't look like money, I want my wrist to be filthy. Pops with that retirement fund, I can't touch till I'm 60. So what am I supposed to do? Roll and do. Steady patting them pockets, sell I'm taking a hole and do. Ching ching bling bling, catching cash and lump. It's a Coro, get a jacket, I'm selling them out my trunk. Whenever, whatever, it takes to shake down a dollar. Moto in that direction, wait a minute, holla holla. All wants to know where they go, where they winning. A mink and Marshall Monday, smelling just like a mint. You know, back in the days, they said money is money, now money is the rich tree. Come on, now if you can't see the money, get your eyes clean with Visine. I need 5 things plus 7 digits at a time. See, I'm cheering, chilling. The best, never worse. See, we never get the pebbles, they got the rocks first. Bank vaults, I'm locking. Ching, ching, we're mocking. I'm rocking. My family Christmas stockings are shocking. Fine women, any weather. Naughty denim and leather. Call it trickin', whatever. Son, they get better. I'm one smart cookie, the vet that smacks rookies. My stock's on top, your checks bounce while mine's boogie. Wrist, I must rock it. Chick, stop it, I knock it. Cash looks like I got a gang of fists in my pockets.
I bet none of you expected that intro. Hello, and good evening, and welcome to The War Room. I am your host, Sean Pwnery, and this is day 282. God. So anyway, I took that hit for you, because today's theme is about the money. Because there are theories about money laundering, there are stories about audits, there are Democrats that are shaking in their little boots because they're about to find out that they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And it came at our expense. So anyway, before I bring in my host, I want to just bring up a couple of things. Number one, what happened to the diesel shortage? I mean, I can fill my tank, so I guess that was BS. And two, I took a copyright strike, or copyright claim, for that intro. For you, because why not? It was fun. And I lost my keys today, leaving work. I'm pretty sure they were attached to my keychain. Right up until I did my little pistol twirl. I use a carabiner for a keychain, and every day when I leave, I flip it around my index finger so they spin into the palm of my hand as I walk out the door. I'm not trying to show off, it's just something I do. And I do it every day, and today it went off without a hitch. I got in my truck, I stuck the key in there, and I twisted it off, and I got to hear the lovely sound of a diesel soundtrack. And then I went to the grocery store. My keys were gone. I got out of the truck, I hit the button to lock the door, keys were gone. What the fuck? So that started my evening off. I had a great day at work. I had a great week. I hope you all had a great week. We had Thanksgiving. We had Black Friday. We had power and water and heat, unlike those poor folks out in the Ukraine. And yet, I lost my house keys. I lost the key to my gun safe. I lost the key to my guitar case. I lost my Kroger shopper's card that was attached to my keychain. Oh, woe is me. But we're here, and you're here, and I thank you for being here. So anyway, before I drag on into another diatribe that'll probably make this show last 3 hours, let me bring in my co-hosts. So first and foremost, I don't know if I can call them ride or dies, but they're here and they keep showing up. I didn't even promise them beer, because I drank it all before we went on air. So, my first co-host, Scottish Naya, Scott P79. Good evening to you, sir. Who's obviously not there. And Mikhail Knightstrikesky, the ultimate infidel, who's trying to buy a right shoe to his left shoe. But I digress. I won't drag it out. Anyway,
hold up. I have a response for that.
oh, go on.
Go eat dog.
No, I just had 3 hot dogs, and they were disgusting. Anyway,
So you admit to eating dog. Okay.
hot dogs. Nathan's hot dogs.
Also, by the way, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, meh. Anyway, good evening to you, Bjorn, Terry Scherer, Shitty Hill, DJ Darkhound, my friend Jeff, and anyone else who catches this on the replay. I didn't do this short notice. I put this out before I left for work this morning, so you guys had 12 hours notice. If you're not here, then I guess you were busy. I'll give you a mulligan.
Well, Zeke's not live this evening, so
Whatever, I don't care. I'm not an AK guy. I'm barely an AK guy, despite the fact that I have a crank thing, KP9, a GF4, and an RPK. But I never claimed to be versed in AKs. I will defer that knowledge and information to others.
I've got a Saiga, an RPK, and a standard AK.
You have a Chinese RPK. It has a special model number.
Let me just have that it's an RPK. All right?
It is. I'm just saying it's unique. It has a different model number. I like it.
It's a Chinese
like it.
one. I get it. You know,
I like it. I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got a better deal on it than I got on my RPK.
Right now, I'm in between either getting a Chinese 1897 copy or getting a Remington 870 copy.
No, no, and no.
I want the slam fire shotgun.
No. Well, you know what? No, I like that idea, but get a real one.
No, I can't get a real one because I can't afford the price.
Yes, you can.
Right now.
Get
No.
Get the non-riot version with the 28-inch barrel and cut that fucker down.
This one's already got the shields on it or the bayonet. Fuck you. Stop being a dick. You see, this is why our families had problems in the first place. Because when you guys get drunk, you're dicks.
Look, my ancestry owned the biggest brewery and distillery in West Virginia. What do you got?
Land.
The distillery is on land. Anyway. Nobody knows what we're talking about.
Because you guys were drunk. That's why the whole
Nobody
thing
knows what we're talking about.
Nobody knows. No,
Anyway,
no, they don't understand.
This is not about kissing cousins. I promise. This is about my allergies, the fact that I lost my goddamn house keys, the fact that...
At least I don't lose my keys.
I didn't mean to. My carabiner lost their keys. I have a diesel life story for you. Just indulge me, okay? I got in the truck, I twisted the key, check engine light came on. I'm like, are you serious? And I looked at the symbols on the dash, which looked like fucking hieroglyphs, but I knew what it meant because I looked it up the last time this happened. And the fix the last time this happened was key off, wait a couple seconds, key on, off you go, right? Well, I didn't have time to key off because I was in the middle of driving when I saw that thing come on. A stepper motor for an electronic throttle because apparently this truck is drive-by-wire. I could weld my foot to the floor and it's not going to take off. It's going to do whatever the fuck it wants to do because it doesn't understand what I'm doing with the pedal because the sensor was like, autistic that moment I twisted the key, right? So I drove from work to the grocery store with no throttle response. Like I was just putting along, and I'm just like, whatever, as long as I get there, because it's rush hour traffic. I can't go very fast anyway. When I realized I lost my house keys and my safe key and my guitar case key, I got angry. And I texted my boss and shut the truck off, went into the grocery store anyway, didn't find what I was looking for, got back in the truck, twisted the key, and guess what? That little light was off. Now, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Scott loves when I say that. All the lights were off. I was angry, I was missing my keys, and I had to drive 14 miles back to work. Every fucking light and stop sign. When I hit the gas, I roasted 34-inch tires off the line because the light was off. That was kind of cool. My tires didn't think that was cool because they're
No.
$500 a piece. But you know what? I feel better. So anyway, let me read the chat because apparently I got this in the way. Blame the inanimate object. I'm missing context. Anyway, we are at day 282. We are officially over 9 months into this conflict. We have had our war baby for about a week. It is shitting green. It is crying in the middle of the night. It is affecting our sleep. It is making us quite edgy and aggravated.
Hold on. Since you said green, I have to say it.
Hmm.
Soylent Green is made of people.
Yeah, but baby shit green is made of baby shit.
I know.
Anyway, today's theme and today's intro music. Here comes the money. Accusations fly about the Biden administration's categorical profiteering in Ukraine.
Oh, he's saying you blame the carabiner.
Well, yeah, because I broke the spring. I've had it for like 15 years, and the spring broke. So it didn't lock in place, and the two key rings, the truck key stayed on, but the house key ring slipped off because it wasn't always locked in place. Anyway, accusations fly about the Biden administration's categorical profiteering in Ukraine from the EU. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine once again states the blatantly obvious, as she's now on the hot seat. Threats of audits are causing Democrats to scramble to cover their tracks, lining their pockets with funds meant to assist Ukraine. And Taiwan asks, "Hey, what about us?" And NATO suddenly supports Ukraine's entry into their little boys club. Really? Where the fuck were you back in 2014? Or most of even 2020? How about days before Russia began their attack back in February? 9 months ago. Is this some kind of joke? These are the stories we're going to cover for you tonight, or uncover, as we try to answer these questions. So, I'm going to start with Saturday, last week, day 276. And I have a picture for you, because I have prepared such. I can also tell you that the scroller at the bottom is up to date. I was on top of all the show prep this week, which is great. Anyway, Saturday, November 26th, day 276. Top European officials have attacked President Biden's actions amid the ongoing war in Ukraine and have questioned whether the United States remains an ally as gas prices soar, and U.S. green energy policies have put Europeans into, quote, full-blown panic mode. European officials speaking anonymously to Politico accused the U.S. of profiteering off of Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and complained that green subsidies and taxes included in the Inflation Reduction Act have deteriorated relationships between the U.S. and European allies and partners. The fact is, if you look at this soberly, the country that is most profiting from this war is the US, because they're selling more gas at higher prices and because they're selling more weapons. We are really at a historical juncture, an official added, arguing that the U.S. policies have disrupted trade and that high gas prices are turning public opinion against aid for Ukraine. America needs to realize that public opinion is shifting in many European countries. Among Europe's complaints is that the electric vehicle tax credit included in the Inflation Reduction Act, a $369 billion spending tax law signed by Biden, is protectionist and discriminatory because it imposes unfair competition against foreign manufacturers. The Inflation Reduction Act is very worrying, Dutch Trade Minister Liesje Schrijnemacher says. The political impact on the European economy is huge. Huge.
Huge.
Huge. At the same time, Putin has cut off energy exports to the rest of Europe, which has led EU countries to buy fuel from the US at nearly 4 times the cost. These factors, combined with record high inflation, the threat of recession, and increased demand for energy as winter approaches, have led European leaders to question whether the Biden administration is aware of the harm the president's policies have inflicted.
I don't think he cares.
Sidebar. The American people, for the last 2 years, have noticed the increased cost, the record high inflation.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's going on. We know it's protectionist. We know it's discriminatory. We know that it's insider trading and profiteering by crooked Democrats. You're just catching on because now it's affecting your bottom line. Sorry. Anyway.
Moving on.
No, I have more story. More of the same story. Americans, our friends, take decisions which have an economic impact on us, the EU's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, emphasized to Politico. U.S. officials have deflected blame to Russia. The rise in gas prices in Europe is caused by, quote, Putin's invasion of Ukraine and Putin's energy war against Europe, period. A spokesman for the White House National Security Council told Politico. The White House has also said that American energy exports are helping Europe, taking credit for shoring up energy supplies ahead of winter. The increase in global liquid natural gas supplies, led by the U.S., helped European allies and partners get storage levels to an encouraging place ahead of the winter, and will continue to work with the EU, its members, and other European countries to ensure sufficient supplies will be available for winter and beyond. Yada yada, word salad fucking bullshit. The White House insisted that U.S. policies have not undermined or contradicted President Biden's promise to Europe that America is back as a reliable ally. But European officials are not so sure. The Inflation Reduction Act has changed everything, one EU diplomat told Politico. Is Washington still our ally or not? Well, if you're that EU diplomat, let me tell you something as a non-political hack from Texas. Washington was never your ally.
Now, Washington ain't even the ally of the people of the country it governs.
The United States is your ally, but Washington is your enemy. Because Washington, D.C. is our enemy. You see, the problem is the powers that be put party over principle, put their own interests above the interest of the nation or the geopolitical landscape of the world. They don't give a fuck about you. They only care about themselves. We know that. Unfortunately, we, the educated United States citizen that votes, are outnumbered by morons who drink the Kool-Aid and are promised free shit by the very party that is dry fucking you in the ass right now. How's that for not having a filter tonight?
You're drunk. Go home.
No, not yet. But I'm in that let me tell you what's wrong with you mode. As you can tell.
I'll tell you what's wrong.
I've weaponized eloquence tonight.
Oh my God.
Moving on. Next story. Same day.
You're what's wrong with you.
I'm what's wrong with the establishment. I'm what scares them. Anyway, moving on. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, is now on the hot seat. They're treating this shit like the NBA, aren't they? Oh, you lost 4 games. You're on the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. In the biggest diplomatic assignment of her career, she's in the middle of a war with a flak coming at her from all sides, domestic and abroad.
Oh no.
Oh no. Media outlets caught up with her when she was doing a tour at Kyiv's main train station, which is now doubling as a massive charging and heating hub for many city residents caught without power amid the massive Russian missile barrage on the power grid there. Millions have been left out in the cold.
Millions.
Really, literally millions. It's horrific. It's unconscionable. What is happening, in our judgment, is war crimes. Brink's specialty in her 25-year career has been Europe, where there have been a lot of, quote, gray area disputes. For the ambassador, this one is pretty black and white. This is about freedom, about the fight between good and evil, she says. We think it's absolutely essential that Russia faces strategic defeat and that Ukraine prevails. There has been a flurry of reports in recent weeks that Washington is trying to nudge Kyiv towards at least considering talking with Moscow. But Brink, she's not buying it. It'll be up to the Ukrainians to decide when and how they wish to negotiate. Prompted by politicians' comments, there's also been thinking that as the Republicans assume control in the House, there could be some cutback of aid to Ukraine. Brink remains positive. I felt full and total support, she commented, not only obviously from the president, but from bipartisan members of Congress. She did note that accountability would be an ongoing feature of fund disbursements. As complex as this 9-month-old war has been getting, Brink still thinks that its resolution is fairly straightforward. I think Russia could stop this war tomorrow, she sums up. Russia can stop the war and pull its troops out and the war will end. That is easily more said than done. But America's top diplomat, who has clearly accomplished nothing in 9 months, is trying. This is a woman who has never been on camera, who has never been on public record, who has been given a position of power, and has done nothing useful with it. Sound familiar? Let me point to you the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Knee Pads Harris, the border czar.
Emphasis on knee pads.
These two idiots are in the same position of power when it comes to geopolitical diplomacy.
Well,
neither one of them has done a fucking thing. And yet they're going to tell us how it's going to resolve itself by stating the obvious.
I really question if she really deserves the title of border czar, because that would require you to actually go to the border to see how bad the situation is, instead of running away to another country.
She was in El Paso. She was in Robert Francis O'Rourke country.
That's not the border.
I agree. I'm just saying. They think that being 14 miles from the actual border is being close enough.
You want the border? Go down to fucking Brownsville.
No, El Paso is a border town. It is. Just not as close as you and I want it to be. I think Russia can stop this war tomorrow. Russia can stop the war if it pulls its troops out. Then the war will end. No, sweetheart. The war will not end. Russia can pull out all its troops, and that'll stop the fighting. But you got to understand, there are billions, tens of billions of dollars that have been expended helping Ukraine stop an invasion. Those funds have to be recouped somehow. But you're too stupid to realize that, okay? You don't just write tens of billions of dollars in checks and foreign aid and not expect something in return, okay? The war doesn't end because you pushed all the Russian troops out. That's not how this works, okay? The leader who caused this needs to be held to account as a war criminal. That's the first thing. Second thing, he needs to be removed from power. Third thing, people are going to demand reparations. If you're Poland, who has taken over 3 million refugees, you definitely want reparations. And what are those reparations? You give up Kaliningrad. Because it was never yours in the first place. You see, that's how the war ends. You put that turnip-toothed, barley-eating, sawed-off runt hiding in the Urals on the end of a rope, and you force his country back into the Stone Age for 10 years, and you make them give up Kaliningrad. Then you can say the war's over. But until then, shut the fuck up. Anyway, moving on. We're going to go on to Sunday, day 277.
Going on to Sunday.
The
Sunday.
Wars don't take a break.
They don't?
Someone put that idiot up on the screen.
Who is it? I can't see it. Who is it?
You know damn well who it is. President Biden's administration is scrambling to track nearly $20 billion in military aid it has sent to Ukraine as Republicans warn of impending audits when they take control of the House in January. Likely future House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said that his party will not be giving Ukraine a blank check to fend off Russia's invasion. A political audit would determine how much, if any, of the U.S. aid is ending up in the wrong hands. The Biden administration's previous tracking efforts have been inspected only a fraction of the aid provided to the country. The Republican push to ramp up oversight enjoys some bipartisan support in Congress. Some staunch Ukraine allies fear that the party will cut off aid to the country entirely, however. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia has vowed to, quote, hold our government accountable for Ukraine spending, and some of her colleagues across the aisle are echoing the same message. The taxpayers deserve to know that investment is going where it's intended to go. This came from Representative Jason Crow, a Democrat of Colorado. In any war, there can be missteps and misallocation of supplies. I can tell you that he is not wrong. Some of the Javelin missiles that we have sent for aid to Ukraine have been found in Colombia recently. So yeah, some of this stuff can be misallocated. Shocker, right? The lawmakers agree that current monitoring efforts appear woefully inadequate, with the Biden administration inspecting just 10% of the 22,000 weapons the U.S. has provided Ukraine between January to February 1st. U.S. allies in Europe have expressed hope that Republican skepticism of Ukraine aid will not lead to a widespread cutting of funding, however. You'd be playing right into Putin's hands, said UK Parliament member Tobias Elwood back in October. If America pulls back, Putin could snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Sidebar. If you think that if we stop sending things to Ukraine will allow Putin to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, then you, in the UK, need to bump up your production to make up the difference. Because we aren't responsible for footing the entire bill. We're an
Nope.
ally. You're an ally, which means you are equally involved in this. So don't go fucking pointing fingers at us.
Yep.
If you don't think we got enough, or they got enough, and we're going to pull it back, you make up the difference. Simple. Be an ally. Do your part. Strangely enough, that sounds very against everything I've said for the last 9 months, isn't it? Like, I've been full pro-Ukraine. But I'm also do your fair share, clearly. Don't bitch about us pulling out. We've been signing blank checks since February. What have you done? You know? Same kind of thing, right? Anyway. McCarthy has based his criticism of the aid packages on America's economic situation as the economy struggles and threatens to fall into a recession. I think that people are going to be sitting in a recession and they're not going to write a blank check to Ukraine, McCarthy said last month. They just won't do it. There's no such thing as a free blank check. Nevertheless, America's funding for Ukraine has been largely bipartisan under President Biden, and many Republicans say that there is no reason that funding cannot continue in some form. No one in Republican leadership has called for an end to aid in Ukraine. This came from Representative Mike Turner of Ohio, Republican. People on the Republican side are saying, why do we have to pass a $40 billion package to send only $8 billion to Ukraine? That's a good question, isn't it? Where's the other $32 billion going? Ask Nancy Pelosi. Ask her crooked insider trading husband, who got his ass beat by some dumbass Canadian illegal immigrant who used, what was it, a hammer? Right, anyway. Good evening to the bearded guy.
That bearded guy.
That damn bearded guy.
I know, right? Damn that guy.
Moving on. Monday. See, we're getting along. November 28th, day 278. I got this photo for you. And I swear, I see that picture, and I'm looking at an M60 Patton tank. I'm pretty sure that's what we're looking at in that picture. The U.S. has sent tens of billions of dollars worth of military aid to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion, but the effort is coming at the expense of aid that the U.S. initially intended to send to Taiwan. The backlog of military aid to Taiwan has grown by more than $4 billion since the U.S. began its effort to support Ukraine's military in February. This comes from the Wall Street Journal, by the way. See? Lots of sources. Russia's invasion of Ukraine already raised fears that China could use the opportunity to invade Taiwan, and the lessened support from the U.S. may only exacerbate the potential. The U.S. has sent nearly $20 billion in military aid to Ukraine since February. Actually, it's more than double that. So much that President Biden's administration is struggling to keep track of how the aid is being used. The volume of U.S. aid to the country has given rise to some skeptics within the Republican Party, who are calling for greater accountability. Congress is reportedly making an effort to shore up its effort for Taiwan with a fast-tracked funding package aimed at making the island more readily prepared for invasion than Ukraine was. So I guess what that is, sorry Ukraine, we fucked that up. We'll make sure we get it right for Taiwan. China has grown increasingly aggressive towards a self-governed island in recent years, conducting weeks of military exercises in an apparent simulation of an invasion this fall. Chinese President Xi Jinping has warned that Taiwan's reunification with mainland China is a top priority and has not ruled out using force to do so. Hearts and minds, dude.
Don't forget some helmets.
Don't forget the helmets. Taiwan first split from mainland China back in 1949 after pro-democracy forces lost a civil war against the Chinese Communist Party. The Democrats then fled to Taiwan and have governed themselves there for decades. Nevertheless, China refuses to admit and accept the island's independence and uses its economic weight to pressure the world to do the same. The U.S. has long abided by its, quote, one China policy, which states that the U.S. acknowledges the government in Beijing as the true government of China. It also states that the U.S. will not hold former diplomatic relations with Taiwan. While the U.S. does not have a formal embassy in Taiwan, it has long had extensive trade ties with the island and has delivered defense supplies. The U.S. adopted a policy of strategic ambiguity regarding Taiwan and its relationship with China. Biden himself has vowed on 4 separate occasions that the U.S. would deploy its military to stop an invasion should one take place. But the White House has walked back his comments every time. So that makes you wonder, who's actually in charge at the White House? Because it's clearly not Jen Psaki, because she's gone. Which means it's clearly not Karine Jean-Pierre, because she's an idiot. I thought she was a breath of fresh air when she used to substitute for Jen Psaki. But the longer she's held the job, the more I realize she's an idiot. Like, truly, she's a moron. So then who's in charge? Is it former Admiral John Kirby, Speaker at the Pentagon? Is it Jake Sullivan, Speaker at the Pentagon? Is it Mark Milley? Very doubtful. Who's in charge? If by some miracle Peter Doocy, or his father, ever hears this podcast, I implore you, please, catch the president on a bad day and just be like your son, Peter Doocy, please, just do this, okay? You will get a fucking Pulitzer Prize if you do this. Catch the president on a bad day, especially after he's had Indian food the night before and has a very weak prostate. And he's more full of shit than usual. And just go, listen, Joe, the game is up, dude. Why don't you quit fucking around and just tell the world who's actually in charge? And just let him blow his top and go, fine, you want to know who it is? Bleh. And hear that name, so he can shock the world by revealing a name that no one expected. Because it ain't the Cook brothers, because one of them died. It ain't Soros, because that man has scrotums for eyelids. And it ain't Kamala Harris, because she wears knee pads. It's obviously not Nancy Pelosi, because that crypt keeper just got voted the fuck out. So it's got to be somebody that no one saw coming. It's not Obama, because he only has a role to play. He is the mouthpiece of the monster. It's not Bill Clinton, because he was the charisma of the monster. It's not Hillary Clinton, because she is the drippy, wrinkly, nasty, foul-smelling lower orifice of the party. See, I kept it clean. Ish. It's not Michelle Obama, because that's just Wayne Brady in a dress. There, I said it. Anyway, I would just love to hear him say a name that no one expected. And no, it's not Oprah, and it's not none of those sexless old hags at The View. I promise.
And it's not Jens Stoltenberg either.
No. Oh, I've got something planned for that Swedish underwear model. I got a story. I got a story about that motherfucker. Moving on. Unless you have something you want to add.
No, I don't.
Okay, moving on. I want to show you a picture of this. This is known as an M142. The U.S. is reportedly weighing a proposal from Boeing to supply Ukraine and Eastern European allies with munitions that will allow troops to strike Russian targets within over 100 miles. Eh? Boeing's proposed system, dubbed Ground Launched Small Diameter Bomb, GLSDB, has a range of roughly 94 miles and would allow Ukraine to strike further into Russian lines. Although Washington has denied Kyiv's request for the 185-mile range ATACMS, the Atacms, I say Atacms missile, the GLSDB, Ground Launched Small Diameter Bomb, could be delivered by the spring, according to documents reviewed by Reuters. See? News source. The bombs have been in development since 2019, long before the February 2022 invasion of Russian troops into Ukraine. According to Saab, remember those guys? They used to build cars. They used to build fighter jets. They used to build HGVs under the Scania name, which is making the GLSDB bombs jointly with Boeing. The weapons can defeat some electronic jamming, are usable in all weather conditions, and can be used against armored vehicles. The United States has spent billions of dollars worth of military aid to Ukraine to help troops fend off Russia's invasion. Since February, the U.S. has sent nearly $20 billion in military aid to Ukraine, so much that the Biden administration is struggling to keep track of where the aid is being used. The volume of U.S. aid to the country has given rise to some skeptics within the Republican Party who are calling for greater accountability. So, we talked about this earlier this week here in the server, here in my lobby for working stiffs, which all of you are invited to join. There's a link at the bottom of every video, by the way. If you're not part of the server, the question is, where the fuck are you? We talked about this. Mike has talked about it. I've talked about it. Our friend Jeff, who is Torben, currently in the multiplayer gaming channel right now, has talked about it. We've all talked about this. And some of the money can't be accounted for. And I want to offer you an explanation, because I think it makes sense. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it makes sense. The United States offers an aid package to Ukraine. I'm going to use very simple numbers here. $100 billion. Now, we haven't done that. I'm using a nice, fat, even number, okay? Let's say the United States sends $100 billion to Ukraine in an aid package, right? And the aid package includes bombs, bullets, antibiotics, everything with the B in it, right? Okay? Boats, whatever. Babes, maybe not. My point is,
I wish.
There are a few things that are categorically listed in the aid package, but there's also liquid cash, right? Money. Because the money goes to the Ukrainian war chest. Because if you're in a war, you have to be able to fund it. And sometimes funding that war requires you to have money as Johnny on the spot for something that comes up. That, oh shit, I need this, right? So some of this, quote, unaccounted money, I believe, and I could be wrong, is part of the war chest and the oh shit fund. For instance, only a week or two ago, almost 80% of the country was without power, which means they had no running water. They had no heat, right? Zelensky had to write checks very quickly to like Siemens and the Swiss and whoever else had electronics supplies to rebuild the power grid. Okay? That's not part of a quote aid package. That was part of the liquid cash so he could buy these things on the spot as he needed it. And I think that we're going to find that when they do this quote audit, that a lot of that will be explained post facto. Right now, there's a lot of stuff that Congress is going to go, look, we cut this check, we gave it to Ukraine, we don't know where all of it went. But then, like, a year or two from now, if Zelensky wins, he could say, look, you guys were worried about where the money was. Here's a bunch of receipts. We had to buy this stuff from Siemens and General Electric and whatever to rebuild our power plant. Or we needed copper wiring. Or we knew... He can do that later, okay? Some of this money is going towards legitimate things like that that you don't have an answer for until after the fact. And I'm willing to accept that as a tax-paying American. What I'm not willing to accept is when Nancy Pelosi tries to hide something, and then we find out her husband made $10 million on an insider deal based off of wherever some of this money went into a slush fund to fund something else. Okay, that's what I'm not okay with. That's what all of you would not be okay with. I would not ask you to be okay with any of that. But I think a very large amount of this aid package goes towards things that can't be explained until it's over. Be patient. You can follow the money, and I suspect that some of that will go towards that. And that will soothe the furrowed brow of a lot of people like us who go, why are we writing all these blank checks and not getting anything back? I think we will. I'm willing to hold back and just wait for that. Okay? It's sort of like when you hear about a mass shooting and it's like everyone's jumping to conclusions. It's like, wait a minute, wait for the facts. Sometimes you get the facts and you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. So, just sit tight. I think there's going to be a better explanation than what we're getting. Not all of it. There's going to be some skimming and corruption, obviously, because it's Democrats. That's what they do. But I think some of it's going to be explainable. I really believe that Volodymyr Zelensky is not the kind of guy who's going to try to turn a buck from this. He's still wearing Under Armour shirts and shit, for God's sakes. He's not wearing Fendi. He's not driving in a G-Wagon that's armored. Just saying. Moving on. I mean, unless you guys disagree.
No, keep going.
Okay. Like, that's what you and I talked about earlier this week. It's just, I wanted to bring it on to the audience that, you know, some of this stuff is, you're not going to find out for a while. And when we do find out, we're going to go back and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Not all of it, but some of it. Hopefully, a majority of it is that. Not a majority of going, fuck, why are we cutting these checks if these people are just going to put it in their pockets? If that's the case, then yeah, I'm with you guys. Let's fucking burn it down. PNW Woods has been very busy in the chat, and I'm sorry I haven't been noticing that. I am reading it, and I do recognize it, and I do agree with you. Both of the sides are in on something. When you have a two-party system, it's a one-party system. Because at the end of the day, it's just like going to the WWF in 1981. They say they're going to kill each other on camera, and then 2 hours after the cameras are turned off, they're all drinking beer and eating ribs together at the hotel. I agree with you. Which is why I don't like either party. Which is also why I want 5 parties, or more. Anyway. Moving on. Tuesday. Not 9 o'clock. Tuesday, November 29th, day 279. And this is my favorite story, actually, for this week. Because it involves this Swedish underwear model asshole. And I hope you can read the caption that I put in there, because that's exactly what I heard when I saw his face in that picture. NATO, on Tuesday, reaffirmed its commitment to admit Ukraine as a member of the alliance as Russia steps up its attacks on the country. Now, think about that for a minute. To Tuesday, right? What, 3 days ago? Yeah, 3 days ago. Reaffirmed its commitment to admit Ukraine into NATO. Read my caption up there.
What does it say? I can't see it.
It says, no way! We always said we'd let them in. What do you mean about 2014 and everyday sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck you, Swedish underwear model. Representatives from NATO member states met in Romania to drum up support for Ukraine after devastating missile strikes left the country without power in most areas. Some nations committed military aid to help Kyiv maintain its defense, but most importantly, the member states vowed to keep Ukraine on track to join the alliance. NATO Secretary General and Swedish underwear model Jens Stoltenberg said NATO's door is open and stressed Russia does not have a veto on countries joining the alliance. We stand by that, too, on membership for Ukraine, he says, adding that Russia will see Finland and Sweden as members of NATO soon. A joint statement from the foreign ministers of Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, and Ukraine stressed the commitment of unwavering support to Ukraine's European integration, as well as its Euro-Atlantic aspirations. A strong, independent, and prosperous Ukraine is essential for the future of the European security, the ministers wrote, adding that the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people for their European choice is unprecedented. In addition to support for expanding the Black Sea Grain Initiative and the new Grain from Ukraine programs, which aim to help avoid widespread famine after Russia tried to strong-arm the world by holding 30% of the global grain supply hostage, the ministers urged support for businesses investing in Ukraine and, quote, continuing the current trade liberalization of the country. This is part of our collective responsibility to make sure that justice, human rights, and international law prevail, the minister concluded. We will continue to close our collaboration, We will continue our close collaboration in ensuring strong political, financial, and military support for Ukraine for as long as it takes. Lithuania's Foreign Minister Gabrielis Landsbergis tweeted out that his message to fellow NATO foreign ministers is keep calm and send tanks. I like that. Some officials and analysts believe that Ukraine's relationship with NATO and its potential to join the alliance played a role in prompting Russia's invasion, as Putin feared having another NATO ally along his country's border. But Ukraine will not join NATO in the near future as its borders remain contested with Russia. Stoltenberg, despite his commitment to support Ukraine's application, should it seek membership, worried that trying to push ahead with membership now could end up dividing what has so far remained a staunchly unified alliance. We are in the midst of a war, and therefore we should do nothing that can undermine the unity of allies to provide military, humanitarian, financial support to Ukraine, because we must prevent President Putin from winning, he says. Question: where was this motherfucker back in February when he denied them entry? Where was this motherfucker back in 2014 when they demanded that Ukraine dismantle the only thing they had to keep Ukraine from invading them, which was Russia's own nuclear arsenal, which they willingly complied with? Where was this motherfucker back in 2008 when they demanded Ukraine disarm their own domestic nuclear arsenal to be considered for NATO membership? Where was this motherfucker when he says that Russia's a problem and yet Russia has veto power in the very group that he's having bordered nations join? Why does he feel like he's under threat if he's part of the very group that his bordering nations are joining? He's part of it. Why do you feel threatened? How shriveled and delicate are your testicles that you are that fucking worried about nations joining the boys club, which you hold veto power to? You're part of the club. Why are you worried about your neighbors joining it? You moron. See, I told you I was in rare form tonight.
Yeah, who are you?
This is what happens when you elect a Swedish underwear model as the fucking leader of the collective of NATO idiots.
Was he really an underwear model, or are you just saying that?
No, he just looks like one. Like, put him in fucking Der Spiegel magazine, page 78, bottom left corner. Calvin Klein underwear, sport model, whatever. Lame. I'd like to smack him in the mouth. That's what I'd like to do. Shave his head bald and kick him in the ass. Feed him to the Polish. Wednesday, November 30th, day 280. Moving on, if you hadn't noticed. I titled this picture, Mo Money, Mo Money, to keep in line with the theme. And I've got that idiot on the screen again. I'm sorry. President Biden's administration has pledged an additional 53 million, with an M this time, not billion, in aid to Ukraine to assist in fixing the war-torn country's electrical grid. Okay, cool. The 53 million will be used largely to purchase circuit breakers and distribution transformers, according to the New York Times, news source. Remember when I was talking about slush funds and having to write checks as Johnny on the spot for stuff to repair your infrastructure? There it is, right there! The funds come as part of a multinational effort to bolster Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which has been targeted with Russian missile strikes for more than a month. Russian President Vladimir Putin's forces shifted towards targeting Ukraine's power and water stations in early October, seeking to make Ukrainian citizens suffer through the country's bitter winter. In total, the U.S. has sent nearly $20 billion, with a B, in military aid to Ukraine since Russia's invasion began back in February. The Biden administration is already struggling to track those funds, as Republicans warn of impending audits once they take control of the House in January. Yes, there's a little bit of overlap in my stories. Likely future House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said that his party will not be giving Ukraine a blank check to fend off Russia's invasion. The Biden administration's previous tracking efforts have inspected only a fraction, about 10%, of the aid provided to the country. The Republican push to ramp up oversight enjoys some bipartisan support in Congress. Some staunch Ukraine allies fear that the party will cut off aid to the country entirely. Remember, overlap. The lawmakers agree that current monitoring efforts appear woefully inadequate, with the Biden administration inspecting only 10% of 22,000 weapons the U.S. has provided the Ukraine between February 1st to November 1st. McCarthy has based his criticism of the aid packages on America's economic situation as the economy threatens to fall further into recession. I think people are going to be sitting in a recession, McCarthy said last month. They just won't do it. There's no such thing as a free blank check. He's right, but the thing is they're not... It's woefully inadequate because they don't want you to see the 90% that they're skimming off of. That's the problem. When you skim off the top, you don't want the taxpayer to see that. Oh, if I'm going to write this check for $100 million to Ukraine, I think I deserve $1 million for my efforts.
No.
Times 535 people in Congress. Now it's all of a sudden, if we're going to send $1 billion to Ukraine, times 535 Congress people, that's 535 million skimmed off the top. Now it's starting to make sense to you, isn't it? As a taxpayer. Moving on. Now we're going to get into something a little more sick, actually. Here's a photo. An employee at Ukraine's embassy in Madrid. That's in España. I even did it with the right... I even said it with the right lisp, if you noticed. España. Has been injured Wednesday in an explosion, Ukrainian officials say. The incident happened while the man was handling a letter, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. An explosive device hidden in an envelope detonated inside the embassy of Ukraine in Madrid. Oleg Nikolenko wrote on Twitter. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba instructed to strengthen the security of all Ukrainian embassies. Nikolenko added, he also called on the Spanish authorities to urgently investigate the attack. The individual suffered light injuries and went to hospital on his own accord. This report came from Reuters. There were no other reported injuries. In a statement to the Financial Times, Nikolenko also said that Kuleba stressed that whoever was behind the organization of this explosion, Ukrainian diplomats, or stopping their daily work on strengthening Ukraine and countering Russian aggression. If you keep hearing this beeping noise, my OBS is shitting the bed, just so you know. Anyway, yeah, it is actually. It's buffering like crazy. So, basically, what we have here is what do you call it? Embassy attacks in sovereign nations abroad. And this fell on a series of stories that I had seen earlier or later this week, that this wasn't the first time. And they're getting worse. Now, I didn't put this in the end of today's stories, but the latest update that I got before we went on air was now embassies all over Europe are receiving packages with the removed eyeballs of animals in the packages. Now, I don't know what that's sick. Whatever it is. Yeah, my OBS is going really crazy right now. I apologize if you hear a bunch of beeping in the replay. Anyway, moving on before I run out of internet somehow. Okay, so same day, we're still on Wednesday stories, just so you're aware. And this is missile strikes with a Y.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, no. Ukrainian President Zelensky warned during an overnight address that Russia is, quote, planning something in Ukraine's southern regions as Russian forces bolster their aggression in the north. Not in the southeast, in the north. So they started in the north, they got their ass handed to them, then they went to the southeast, they got their ass handed to them, and now they're attacking in the north again. Now you're up to speed. Despite significant advancements Ukrainian forces made in completely repelling Russian troops from the northern Kharkiv region and pushing Russian forces east across the Dnieper River in the southern Kherson region. What's that?
It's pronounced Kharkiv.
Kharkiv. Sorry. I just kind of rushed through it. My apologies.
It's okay.
Zelensky looked to sound the alarm in his overnight address last Tuesday. The situation at the front is difficult, he warns. Despite extremely big Russian losses, the occupiers are still trying in the Luhansk region, move in the Kharkiv region, that they're planning something in the south. Intense fighting in the Donbass, which includes parts of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, has raged for months. Fighting has intensified in two regions since Ukraine pushed the front lines further east back in September. Outlets could not independently verify Zelensky's suggestion that Russian forces are once again looking to advance in Kharkiv, though the northern region has once again seen an increase in shelling, according to local reports this week. Defense officials have repeatedly pointed to Russia's inability to advance its ground forces in Ukraine following Kyiv's recent military gains.
Yeah, how about those T-114 Armadas?
Not one yet.
Not one yet? I know.
Because they don't want to give one to Israel. Defense officials have repeatedly pointed to Russia's inability to advance the ground forces in Ukraine following Kyiv's recent military gains. I think I already said that part. Russia has instead repeatedly increased its bombing campaign across Ukraine and has turned to international allies like Iran to assist it as its resources begin to wane. The British Defense Ministry on Saturday assessed that Russian forces were using unarmed cruise missiles to continue to hit Ukrainian targets. The ministry said open-source imagery showed that Russian troops relying on the destruction caused from the blast rather than continue their bombardment on civilian targets. This is starting to piss me off, this OBS message. Anyway. Whatever is Russia's intents, this improvisation highlights the level of depletion in Russia's stock of long-range missiles, the ministry says. When asked about this assessment Tuesday, a senior defense official told reporters that it's certainly something that they're trying to do to mitigate the effects of the air defense systems that the Ukrainians are employing. We're watching Russia continue to double down on its strategy to people, to try to break their will, the official says. We do not believe that they will succeed, but they will continue to draw on what stocks they have. Ukrainian defense officials assess that nearly 89,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in Ukraine over the last 9 months, and Zelensky said Tuesday that Kyiv believes 100,000 Russian soldiers will have died by the year's end. Now, remember, that story came from Wednesday. We're already over 90,000. Just so you know. I can't
good.
turn off OBS because that's what we're broadcasting through. So, really annoying now. Anyway, moving on. Apparently, my mom must be streaming in 4K or something, because this is what I get for letting her live with me and share my internet connection with her. Damn it. I have a Wagner Group story for you now. You're going to love this.
Great, the Wagner.
Yes.
And I say that sarcastically, obviously.
Well, I got the picture of them right there. I mean, like, it looks like... the Wagner Group picture reminds me of the splash screen for the Expendables, honestly. Anyway. A Zambian student. Think about that, Zambia. Who had been serving a prison sentence in Russia and died fighting along Russian troops in Ukraine, had been employed by the mercenary group Wagner, its leader says. The Wagner Group head, Yevgeny Prigozhin, said that the Russian social media app Vkontakte, that sounds more Japanese than anything, on Tuesday said that the student, 23-year-old Lemekane Niereda, died a hero. Zambian Foreign Minister Stanley Kakubo said earlier this month that Russian officials had informed the Zambian government of the death of Niereda, who was a government-sponsored student before he was sentenced in Russia for unspecified crimes in April of 2020. He said that the Zambian embassy in the Russian capital of Moscow had established that Niereda died on September 22nd, and that his remains were transported to the Russian border town of Rostov ahead of repatriation to Zambia. Before his prison sentence, Niereda was studying nuclear engineering at the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. He was serving his approximately 9-year sentence at a prison on the outskirts of Moscow, according to the Zambian government. Reports have circulated that Russia, desperate for more manpower to support what the Kremlin calls a special military operation in Ukraine, has offered freedom to convicts if they join the fight. Russia has employed the Wagner Group, whose head, Prigozhin, is said to be a close ally of President Putin and admitted meddling in U.S. elections in several armed conflicts worldwide. Prigozhin said that he had asked the jailed student why he wanted to join the fight, given a high chance he would be killed, and that the Zambian citizen responded, "You Russians helped us Africans gain independence for many years. When it was difficult for us, you extended your hand to us, and continue to do so now. The least I could do, probably, to pay our debts, is to go to war with you." If that doesn't sound like propagandist word salad bullshit, then I've got some beachfront property to sell to you in Arizona.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. I've got a talking pug named Frank, who used to work with the Men in Black, that I could sell you, that G-Webs currently is watching for me. Think about this for a minute. A Zambian student who's only 23 years old, who was studying, what was it? Nuclear engineering at the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. Okay? That's an egghead job. Right? Why
you think
would
they need
he,
people like that?
Why would he be arrested and charged and sentenced for a crime? Being an egghead. It doesn't make any sense, right? The Russians are falsely imprisoning foreigners and then forcing them into dirty dozen fighter groups to die so Russians don't have to die. They're making pawns of foreigners. Brittany Griner is going to die on the front lines of Ukraine. Think about that. That's a possibility. It's far-fetched, because I'm pretty sure, if you remember my last couple of episodes, what I think the Russian oligarchs are doing to Brittany Griner in her Russian prison. It's not pretty. But it is a bragging right if you're an oligarch. Moving on. I've only got 3 stories left, so we're going to get you out of here pretty quick. Oh, the turtle who still can't make Discord work is here. Anyway, Thursday, December 1st. We've made it to December. Day 281. And I have this photo for you. And no, it's not a NASAM. It's just something I thought I would share anyway. The U.S. Army awarded a $1.2 billion, with a B,
Billion.
yes, billions, contract to Raytheon to help Ukraine bolster its air defenses by producing 6 National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems, NASAMS. The Pentagon announced Wednesday. Washington last month pledged to send Ukraine 8 NASAMS as Kyiv and Western nations look to fend off Russia's constant barrage of missile fire. 2 of the advanced systems are already operating in Ukraine, which have been extremely successful, according to a report by the U.S. Department of Defense this week. The other 6 missiles will be sent to Ukraine once they've been built. The NASAMS were first pledged to Kyiv under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, USAI, in July, and bids were opened to military contractors for the development of the other 6 systems. Providing arms to Ukraine under the USAI enables the Biden administration to procure weapons for Ukraine from industry contractors rather than using presidential drawdowns to send arms from existing weapons stocks. Basically, he's outsourcing the manufacture straight to the customer. Dropship. The Raytheon contract also includes providing Ukraine with associated equipment, services, and spare parts to keep the advanced air defense systems operational. The work to develop the NASAMS, which will be performed in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, will be completed by November 28, 2025. Chief weapons buyer for the Army, Doug Bush, confirmed last week that the U.S. was accelerating its weapons acquisition process to more effectively replenish its weapon stocks as the war in Ukraine continues. Acquisition speed and agility is a top priority, Bush said in a statement Wednesday. The rapid award of this contract is another example of the Army's ability to accelerate the delivery of critical capabilities through our industry partners and to our allies. That is word salad. Russia has increased its bombing campaign across Ukraine as its forces on the front lines have faltered. Despite significant gains in the Kharkiv and Kherson region, Ukrainian President Zelensky this week warned that Russia is attempting to advance in both sectors on the front lines. Defense officials have assessed that Russia's missile stocks are waning, and its forces are now deploying unarmed cruise missiles to target civilian populations, meaning Russian troops are relying on the destruction caused by the force of the missile rather than the large impact that a warhead would achieve. Moving on. Same day, so we're still on Thursday. And I have another cute caption for you. With this woman, who might be a man. It's hard to say. She's got a Hillary haircut. Kind of gross. And yes, I stuck the photo in there. Look at me. Look at me. This is our money now. The European Commission has proposed a plan to fund rebuilding Ukraine using frozen and seized Russian assets and funds as part of sanctions. Look at me. Look at me. This is our money now. That's what she's saying. Russia must pay financially for the devastation it caused. Ursula von der Leyen, president of the EU's executive, said in a statement. The damage suffered by Ukraine is estimated at over 600 billion euros. Russia and its oligarchs have to compensate Ukraine for the damage and cover the cost for rebuilding the country. Agreed. Russia's central bank saw about 300 billion of its assets globally frozen in response billion in response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine back in February. Russian oligarchs have seen between 20 to 30 billion in personal assets frozen or seized. The assets remain untouched since that time, and officials in the EU, United States, and other Western nations have debated whether Ukraine can benefit from any of the funds. Well, no shit. Hey, we just froze all these billions from the Russians. Do you guys in Ukraine, do you guys think you could use some of this? What do you think the answer to that question is going to be?
Hell yeah.
Like, I think the answer is, bitch, are you stupid? Of course we can use it. Am I wrong? You can tell me I'm wrong in the chat.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong. You just agreed with me. Anyway. European officials argued that one short-term option would see the nations create a fund to manage and invest liquid assets from the central bank and use the proceeds rather than the funds themselves to fund Ukraine. This would see the assets returned in full to their owners once sanction ends. So what they're saying is we're going to take all the seized money, we're going to invest it and skim off the top of the interest to help Ukraine. We're not going to take the 600 billion euros, right? We're not going to take the 300 billion from Russia and give it to Ukraine. No, we're going to take the 300 billion and invest it. And then if we make 3 billion profit off of that, we'll just give you the 3 billion profit. But the 300, we're going to return it to the very assholes who attacked you once the sanctions end. Where the fuck did this woman get educated? Stockholm Syndrome University? Fucking stupid motherfucker. Anyway. We believe it is doable, the official said.
I believe.
Well, actually, no, I missed a spot. An official who spoke anonymously with Reuters said that it is not easy to use a scheme that has no precedent and will require strong backing from the international community. Translation: we've never stolen money of this amount from another country before, so we're going to have strong backing, or we need to conspire together that we're going to steal all this money from the enemy. That's what they're saying. That's exactly what they're saying. We need to conspire and agree that we're taking all this money. So that way when the people we stole it from go, hey, you stole that from us, we can all go, nuh-uh, together. And nobody on our side is going to go, well, actually, we did. No. We have to have an agreement that we're all stealing this money and we're going to give it to the victims of the country we stole it from that are victims of their stupid attack. Okay, gotcha. Cool. We believe it's doable, the official said, noting that the main issue rests with the fact that most European nations can only seize assets in the case of a criminal conviction, which has yet to happen, but may happen in the near future. So what you're saying is you're putting the cart before the horse, and you haven't charged anybody officially in Russia with war crimes, so until you do that, you can't take their assets. Gotcha. Cool. The EU on Wednesday proposed setting up a special court to investigate alleged war crimes committed by Russia or Ukraine. Translation: we're going to set up a kangaroo court to make sure that you're guilty of anything we say you're guilty of. Thank you, fuck you, have a nice day. That's what they're saying. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought death, devastation, and unspeakable suffering, von der Leyen said. File that under no shit. This is why, while continuing to support the International Criminal Court, we are proposing to set up a specialized court backed by the United Nations to investigate and prosecute Russia's crime of aggression. The ICC is not on board, so we're going to make our own kangaroo court to justify the fact that we're taking all of Russia's money. Gotcha. Cool. Like, this is a service I'm providing, translating all her bullshit in word salad into something that makes more sense. The European Commission's plan for Russia's assets bears similarities to a plan that the U.S. has proposed for funds seized from Afghanistan, which would sit in a Swiss-based trust fund. You cannot take 3.5 trillion tons of iron ore and stick it in a Swiss trust fund. You're not fooling anybody. The Commission acknowledged that it is very early days to decide on the plan, which it will present to a G7 task force in December. So, 7 nations of co-conspirators. Got it. Moscow has insisted that any use of funds amounts to theft and opposes their use in any form. Well, of course, they're taking it from you. You have every right to accuse them of that. Unfortunately, nobody gives a shit what you think, Russia, so go fuck yourself. Basically, I just agreed that we should steal from them. Yes. By the way, send me a T-90 tank, a couple of Dushkas, a couple of PKMs, a couple of Dragonovs, and maybe a Satan missile, and we'll call it good. Oh, and a T-98 combat pickup truck. We'll call it good. Then you'll have my support. See? Diplomacy. And this is my last story for you. Unless Mike and Scott have something to share.
Nope, not tonight.
Really? You just want this shit over with. Got it. I will get you out of here in 90 minutes today. And I brought back the lapdog. When's the last time we saw that dopey-faced motherfucker?
We haven't.
Well, there he is. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lapdog. I will not dignify him by using his real name. Accused the U.S. and NATO on Thursday of direct participation in its war of Ukraine. You don't say! But claimed Moscow was still open to talks. In an annual news conference from Moscow, the foreign minister began his comments by defending Russia's barrage of missile fire on civilian targets, like Ukraine's energy sector, and attempted to claim it was a defense tactic to halt Western arms. We disable energy facilities in Ukraine that allow you, the West, to pump lethal weapons into Ukraine to kill Russians, Lavrov said. Oh, should I use his real name there? According to a translation by Reuters. I just translated it for you perfectly. Let me repeat that. We disable energy facilities in Ukraine to allow you, the West, to pump lethal weapons into Ukraine to kill Russians. See? You guys understood that, right? You didn't need a translator. So don't say that the US and NATO are not participants in this war. You are directly participating, he says, including not only with the supply of weapons, but also with the training of personnel. You train the Ukrainian military on your territory. I think I translated that pretty well.
I miss the Soviets.
I think I translated that fairly well. Lavrov was referring, I'm using his real name, fuck him. Lavrov was referring to international efforts to train up Ukrainian servicemen with NATO tactics in nations like Britain, Germany, and Italy. Comments which were made after reports surfaced this week suggesting that Washington may expand its training of Ukrainian soldiers to U.S. bases in Germany. Russia has been accused by NATO of using winter as a weapon of war by forcing Ukrainian citizens to endure increasingly harsh conditions without electricity.
Wait, NATO is a weapon of war?
No, winter.
Oh!
Let me start that over. Russia has been accused by NATO of using winter as a weapon of war by forcing Ukrainian citizens to endure increasingly harsh conditions without electricity, heat, or running water as the cold months set in. Greta Thunberg was unavailable for comment. The West has
when is she
further...
available for comment?
Well, because, you know, it's winter and she's all about global warming, so she's not available for comment. She's too busy making stupid dance videos all of a sudden.
Oh, she no longer cares about the climate.
No,
All right,
she's famous now. She's doing dumb dance videos. She looks like a dopey-headed moron. Anyway, it remains she is not Paula Abdul, the Laker girl / in living color dancer. Okay? She's not that. She's a dopey-headed little girl who dropped out of high school so she can go around the country trying to become the next Al Gore and billionaire. Trying to guilt you into not driving your diesel trucks. Well, guess what? I will. Anyway, it remains unclear what... wait, did I get that right? Yeah. It remains unclear that the general sense in Russia is when it comes to Moscow's deadly war in Ukraine, those cities across Russia have canceled their Christmas and New Year celebrations in recognition of the costly war. Western estimates regarding the toll that the war has taken on Russian troops suggest they have seen at least 80,000 plus casualties since the war began in February. No, it's 90,000. You're about to see it go across the bottom of your screen right now on the scroller, as a matter of fact. 90,090? It's up there somewhere.
Right meow.
Right meow. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that he will not... Yeah, 90,090, exactly. Will not engage in peace talks until Russia completely withdraws all of its troops from all of Ukraine. That includes Crimea. Diminished relations between Russia and the West remains a major geopolitical concern, particularly after Moscow pulled out of scheduled talks with Washington this week on the Nuclear New START Treaty. Lavrov on Thursday suggested that Russia remains open to talks with the U.S. and NATO member nations, but said it was naive of the U.S. to think it would engage in nuclear talks at this time. For now, we aren't hearing any meaningful ideas, he says. If there will be proposals from the President Biden and other members of his administration, we'll never shy away from the contact. In other news, the grass is green, the sky is blue, Iran is directly involved in Ukraine as well as Belarus, parts of Chechnya as well as China. But hey, let's only let the enemy state the obvious, right?
Yes.
Anyway, that's the stories that I have for you this week that fell into the theme that it's all about the money and it's all about pointing fingers, and that the leaders of Russia are still assholes. So
I could have told you that.
If you don't have anything you want to add, because I'm pretty sure the stuff that you and Scott posted in War Never Changes all week sort of covered all this, right? Did I leave anything out?
Not really.
Okay, so we're good. The only thing that's not good is I lost my fucking house keys. And my gun safe key. And my guitar case key. And my Kroger shopper's card. I don't fucking know where it is. Anyway, since you don't have anything to add, and he doesn't have anything to add, and I want to go play World of Warships with Torben, Jeff, and you're welcome to join us, I'm going to play this. Because it is 1 hour and 29 minutes, and I said I'd get you out of here in an hour and a half. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists, see if my other interests might be of interest to you. I've been really bad about the other content. I promise I'm going to get off my ass and record the rest of it, including a multi-part series of 3rd Gen Smith & Wesson pistols that I've been carrying every day this week. So anyway, yeah, if this was the War Room, this was day 282, and you all in the chat, thank you for being stellar and being very active in the chat. We'll be back next week. It'll be day 289. I know I didn't talk about World Cup at all, despite the fact that I love it. Anyway, Slava Ukraini.
Herojem slava.
And we'll see you next week.
Shut